Hi, everybody. I don't know what I just did. Hold on. Okay, I fixed it. We need a little intro music. So let me get that going. Hi, everybody. That was really dramatic, right? I like that. I dig it. I have quite the show for you today. Quite the show. Lots of interesting stuff. It's going to be very long. If you're not into long things, just just go away. Because I'm going to be talking for a while about some stuff that I find interesting. So I'm Laura. I talk about things I find interesting, and it's pretty much the whole world. I find the whole world interesting. I find all the people in the world interesting. I would probably find you interesting if I met you. And I know you're shaking your head and going, no, I'm such a boring person. I go to work, I come home. That's not true. That's not all you are. You have much more. So much more. We all do. So, unless you're a workaholic, I guess, and then maybe like your job is whatever. So there is a dog that's been aggressively playing with a squeaky toy for like the past hour. So you might hear weird squeaking noises in the background. I am not murdering anything in my living room. It is below me. And the dog is like, "Rawr." So without further ado, let's start. So I wanted to talk about caves. You know how I feel about caves. Like, look at that thing, right? You know what I want to do with that wall, right? Everybody knows, right? You want to touch it. Touch the wall. Touch the wall. Look, it looks so nice. I love rocks. I love rocks. I have rocks all around me, actually. There's a rock there. There's a rock there. I have a huge rock bowl over there. There's a bunch of rocks over there. There's a rock that's being used as a doorstop. All kinds of rocks. Rocks. I love rocks. So why am I talking about the caves in Italy? Well, I'm talking about the caves in Italy because I found out something very cool. So this is a city, and it used to look a lot rougher. Let me show you what it used to look like, or what the majority of it used to look like. It used to look like this, and it's known as the Sassi district. This part has been left alone, is largely uninhabited. There are a few people here and there, but mostly what happened is the whole place got redone and, and made nice for tourists. So what happened? How did a backwards city that was in poverty, no electricity, no running water, no bathrooms, no jobs, no real farmland around, right? I mean, look at that. You can't, this is like where all the people who had no place to go went. So how did it end up like this? Well, I'm going to tell you. I have a story for you. So there was a young boy, and he was playing with his friends, and he was in this area. And he said, all of a sudden, a man emerged from underground where there was a hole. And he was wearing scuba gear. And this kid was fascinated because, a guy in scuba gear suddenly popping up out of the ground. Like, what the hell? So what happened is that it was discovered that there was a giant cistern. This is one of the homes, just so you get sort of like a point of reference. Let me make this a little bit bigger. There's a giant cistern under the city. And here we go. This is the picture that I showed you previously. This is the Palumbo Lungo. It was built in the 16th century, and it can hold up to 5 million liters of drinking water. Here's some of the water management of the Sassi people. And did I not save a picture of the cistern? Apparently not. Let's look it up, shall we? But anyway, what happened is they discovered this, and it's obviously a very big deal, right? I think it's a UNESCO site now. They do tours. Here you can kind of start to see, without my big head in the way, you can kind of start to see how huge it is. So anyway, the point being, the whole point I was making, and I totally lost the plot here, is that places rise and fall in how civilized or uncivilized or modern or unmodern they are, right? I believe that previous man used to be very, very civilized and very advanced. And then those people died out. Some other people came along, not as advanced, but eventually worked their way up, more advanced. I think humanity has risen and fallen many times on this planet. And I think that this just reminds us that when we think of time, in terms of time, there are trends that are much bigger than us. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm going to move on before I start getting too philosophical and weird, because then you won't want to watch this anymore. You'll be like, that chick's philosophical and weird. So, moving on. If it were, let's say, I don't know, what is the name of this? The Wasi people? Wabi people? Hang on just a second. I totally forgot, but let's say I wanted to send you a note back in South America, in the Andes. And I said, I want to send a note to my friend who lives all the way over there. I'm being silly, but this is how things were communicated. These are called quipu. I looked it up. That's how you pronounce it. And it is a 10-base system of knots, with each knot not necessarily denoting a letter, but when you put them together, they mean something, and we don't actually know what they mean. So here we have, they've served as recording devices in the Andes for over a millennium, from the time of the Wari Empire, that's the one I was thinking of, to the 20th century, fashioned from strings made of cotton, animal fibers, magui, I don't know what that is, or other plants. Quipus have varied in form and purpose throughout their 1,000+ year history. 1,000+ year history. Here's our little stone god dude made out of rocks, very beautiful. Here is another quipu. Scholars believe that Wari administrators used quipus to help run the empire. One of the most distinctive features of Wari quipus is that some of the cords on each quipu were wrapped with brightly colored yarns, resulting in strings with striking designs. Look at that. Someone really had a lot to say. Quipus reached their height during the Inca's imperial phase, when thousands of quipus were created, consulted, and stored in special empires. And you can see it's shown in art. Here's a quipu that was found in the Rimac Valley. No, it was found in Huaquerones, Peru. Oh dear. Okay, moving on. More quipu, more quipu, more quipu. It will be in the links. You can read to your heart's content about quipu. And, yeah. So some believe that it might be used, or was recently used up until like modern history, by herders to keep track of their animals, to send back and forth. So it was very sort of simple communication, like, have you seen my sheep, I guess, kind of thing. I'm not really sure. I'm guessing. Moving on. Did you know that there used to be theaters on top of New York City buildings? Theaters that look like this. Oh, that's right. I can't make it big. Okay. There we go. So this is from Messy Nessie, who is overloaded with ads lately. But I still love you, Messy Nessie, and I understand. So, this is on top of a roof in New York City. Buildings, skyscrapers were not quite as tall back then, so this might be like a 14-story building, or maybe even a 20-story building, but still not like on the ground floor. And they would have trees, and they would have, gardens, actual gardens, and they had names like Jardin de Paris. People were fascinated with all things French and French culture. It seemed very sophisticated. And that lifestyle kind of trickled over into America at this time, with women wearing French style. French phrases entered our language lexicon. Just really neat stuff, right? Roof, roof, roof theaters. Yes, roof. So the thing that I found interesting about this, and there's a dual interesting thing. It's interesting, obviously, that there used to be theaters on top of skyscrapers in New York City where the average person could get dressed up and for like a nickel, see vaudeville shows, look at, people doing gymnastics. Look at this. This is wild. There's like a windmill there. This is probably meant to emulate like the Moulin Rouge kind of feel. But it's very grand. A lot of money went into it. A lot of money was made. These pictures kind of inspired me, as you'll see in a moment. But my second point of interest is that there's a loophole in New York City building laws where someone who has, say, a 14-story skyscraper can now build on top of the existing one. So they can add on to something that already exists, making a tall building even taller. And people are upset about this. If we look at this, see, this is Central Park. I don't know if you've ever been. Very beautiful. But you can see the very tall skyscrapers are blocking that. And there's a woman here who says, it's going to block my view. It's going to make everything in shade and shadow. She's a little concerned. So there are people that are fighting this, but there are definitely no more rooftop gardens unless you are very rich. I shouldn't say very rich. Like if you live in a nice, very nice apartment complex down in Manhattan, there's probably some sort of garden area, but the average person can't just take their nickel or their $5, whatever that translates into with inflation, and go see a show on a rooftop in New York City. So, a little lost piece of history. And as you can see, I was inspired by the pictures, and we have people doing gymnastics. I love this particular picture. I'm going to put myself up here. Look at how awesome that is. I don't know where he's going, what he's doing, but that dude is freaking airborne. He's like, wow. He's flying. Just incredible photos. And there was one I wanted to show you. I'll leave the rest of the links for you to look at, but where is it? Maybe I bypassed it. I did. It was two women, and one of them was like in midair, and it was a very cool shot. And I don't know where it is. Maybe it's somewhere else. Anyway, trolling through the internet, it's becoming much harder to find interesting things because the internet is locked down. I'm telling you. During COVID, everybody became a researcher. Everybody became like knowledgeable about stuff and looked stuff up and realized how much information is really out there that you can get on the internet. And I think the powers that be were like, wait a minute, we're losing money. We can't monetize this. We need to lock it down. We need to make it harder for people to find things. So lately, I've had a hard time finding things. So I've had to get real creative. And I end up in places like this. So this is Landland. That's a graphic arts studio. They make posters, and they made this house. And I have reoccurring dreams where I'm in weird houses or malls or airports or whatever. But one of the houses in my dream kind of looks like this. It's kind of like all weird and bajankety. And I'm sure other people I have that same dream. Supposedly, when you dream about a house, it's yourself. So I guess I think of myself as all pajankety, which that tracks. It definitely does. But imagine my surprise when I discovered it's a real place. So this guy just started going crazy. He wanted to build his own castle. And he ran out of money and materials. And as he was building, he was fighting against Mother Nature, which would undo that which he had done. This is in Oregon. Very damp, right? Lots of moisture. And it's kind of rotted away inside, I guess. And the neighbors kind of make sure nobody goes in there and gets hurt. Moving on. This is a photo album of a family. Completely random. And look at these pictures. These are family vacation photos of a family that was very comfortable, obviously, because otherwise they would not have had equipment to do this or B, the money to travel. So look at these photos. They're just absolutely amazing. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think these are travels, but it's all one family. But you can see these incredible photos. But this is not the one. There's one with like people in it. There's like a little girl and stuff. Let's see. Maybe it's number 2. Oh, it keeps going. There's like a part of a part of a part. Oh, look at that. I had not seen this one before. We're in new territory, guys. Interesting. So a photo for you to look at. See a snapshot of a long ago time in a foreign place. How people are dressed, the way things look, the technology or lack thereof. Very fascinating. Now, what is this? What is this? Look at this. So this is Mount Ararat. I looked up how to pronounce it. That's how you pronounce it. And this is the top of it. And this is theorized to be Noah's Ark. So it is theorized that the water in the world, or in this part of the world, as per some archaeologists, because they believe definitely in a flood, but not necessarily one that flooded the whole world at the same time. There have been areas that have gotten flooded and completely wiped out. So the theory is that the water rose high enough to deposit Noah's Ark gently on top of this mountain. And here is a Russian article that talks about Noah's Ark. And it talks a little bit about Tatar or Tartary or Tartaria or whatever. And I just throw that out there because I know some of you really dig that stuff. And you can absolutely, see if we go to PDF, get access. I found a way around this last time. I'll get access later and I'll put it in the links. But I found a way around this because it's academic. Like, I shouldn't have to freaking pay for academic stuff. It's information. Now let's travel to Mongolia. Look at these fantastic photos. This is 1925. I would love to be carried around in that thing, not gonna lie. Look at this ancient, I think that's called a stela. That might be a different language. It's called a stela. I'm not sure what it's called in Mongolian. Here we have some people that got into some trouble. And their punishment is to sort of be over this thing that is built where they can't sit up and they can't lay down and they can't go to one side and they can't go to the other side. They don't look very happy. I wonder what they did. Here we see some of the fantastic architecture of, this would have been considered an urban area in 1925 Mongolia. or the city. Many people lived like this in yurts. I mean, you know how I feel about yurts. I love the yurts. Here we have the gate. Although that might be a cemetery. No, that's the city, I think. There aren't any descriptions on the photographs. It's just a wall of photographs that I randomly came across. And this guy looks a little different than the other guys, in my opinion. And this girl looks a little different than the other girls, in my opinion. Interesting. More punishment. I don't know if this is the same person. It looks like the same people, right? There they are again. Maybe it's the same. I think it's probably the same, like the same day. Multiple pictures of the same event. Here we can see some of the costume. Just absolutely fantastical. So this is upper western, not quite the top of Mongolia, but just a little bit down. But it's the far west, where it would touch upon Siberia, I believe. Let's look at a map. I need to be satiated in my search for knowledge. Okay, so we have Mongolia, and this is considered, yes, Russia. The part that we're looking at is probably around here. If we put on the layers, it would be like Turgen is probably one of the, it could possibly be Turgen. But it's in a western mountainous area. I feel confident about that. Okay, so we are trucking right along. This person is obsessed with gas lamps, and their whole thing, gas lamps, the technology. This one, they're kind of cheating. There's a gas lamp here, but it's probably because of the train picture, which is quite dramatic. Gas lamps, gas lamps. Ad for gas lamps. Here's an asylum. Gas lamps. Actual ones that you could buy in a catalog. People making them. Here's an antique one from 1879. Let's look at this sucker. Wow. Extremely, extremely ornate. I used to know someone who did a lot of construction work in the city of Poughkeepsie, which is where I live now. And it wasn't him, it was his father. And his father would have to go into all these homes and modernize them from, it might have been great-great-grandfather. Anyway, and modernize them from gas to electric. And he would say, what do you want me to do with these fixtures? And the people would say, well, you know, they're kind of useless now, so you can throw them away. Some of them, they could be repurposed. If they were expensive enough, they did get repurposed. I've seen gas lamps that were turned into electric lamps. But by and large, people were like, yeah, get rid of them. You know, there's nothing I can do with it. So they would throw them away, and as a result, he got all this incredible history. And he had it in a garage behind his house. And when you walked in, it was like gas lamps and old doorknobs and fancy hinges from the doors. I mean, just people were ruthless when it came to modernizing. They just ripped everything out. I worked in this building a couple blocks down. And in the building, there are 4 stories. And only 2 stories were used. There was the place where I worked, which was the nonprofit. And then above us was a abstract title company. They did real estate stuff. Above them, nobody. So I never knew what was up there. And then finally they said, at some point after we had been there a number of years, the owner was like, I'm selling, you're going to have to move out. And so the abstract company moved out, which meant that I could go up the stairs and go up and see what was on the 3rd and 4th floor. And on the 3rd and 4th floor, there were still gas lamps. There was still the original wood, the wainscoting, the chair rails. There were cabinets built into the wall. There was wallpaper from like the 40s with like cowboys and Indians on it. There was a chamber pot. Just absolutely fascinating. And the owner actually, I don't even know if they actually sold the building because the sign is still up 6 years later, I think. The sign of the place where I used to work. And there's nothing that's happened to it. So it's just sitting there. I think about that sometimes. I used to have a key to that building, and I wonder, I'm like, I wonder if the key still works, but probably not. Oh, as an aside, I just want to let everybody know that anybody who contributed to my Patreon, I want you to hear what I did with it. So a couple weeks ago, I was drinking a little bit, and I decided that I was a beautician and that I could cut hair and I was going to make my hair look amazing. And so I cut my own hair. It was not amazing. And so I went downstairs to the Dominican salon. There's literally a Dominican salon right below me. And I walked in and I said, "Can you fix my hair?" And the woman didn't understand English and my Spanish wasn't good enough to tell her what I wanted. So she had to call a friend. And I'm shouting into the phone, "I need to fix my hair. I tried to cut it myself. It looks terrible." And she translated to the woman, and the woman laughed, and they fixed my hair. So it's kind of in the growing, like it needs to grow in a little bit. But at least it's even, and I don't look like a psych patient. So you might be wondering where I've been for a little bit. And what happened is my computer broke. Had to wait for a new video card. Had to have enough money to get a new video card because I don't want to be frivolous, even though sometimes I am. And my guy got the flu and was so sick that he needed to be attended to. Then I got the flu and I was so sick that I needed to be attended to. And then my cats got sick, which was just devastating to me. I felt so terrible. They were sneezing. They couldn't breathe. They're all better now. You can hear I'm still a little congesty, a little bit. I don't know if I had COVID, but I did lose. I still don't have my sense of taste and smell fully back. So I bought all this amazing perfume, little samples, and I can't smell them. So this is from an old book, Battle of the Sexes: Duels Between Women and Men. So there was this thing, apparently, which may have existed or not existed, when the woman needed justice from her husband. He would be in a pit, and she would have a canvas bag with rocks in it, I think. I've read this 5 times, and I don't even fully understand what's going on, except I can tell you that the person that drew these was really into it. That much I can tell you. Here, see, we have the rock, the sack, and he's like, "Urgh." So I'm not really sure what's going on here, but it's very interesting, no? Get in your hole. I'm going to whack you with a sack full of rocks. So it exists enough in other places that there may have been something to it, but I don't know if it actually really happened. I didn't go that deep with the subject. I would invite you to go deep with that subject and let me know. Is it real? Was this really a thing? I kind of wonder. Okay, so moving on. We are in the final stretch. And I apologize for the ads on this one. It sucks bad. But this is about lighting. And I learned in reading this article that lights were sometimes composed of helium gas. And this particular article takes it further and says that there may have been even more advanced technology that we have lost, because how could things be so bright in these photographs? At least I think that's what they're thinking, is that things are so bright and unworldly, and there's these weird little bulby things on top of buildings, and they were power sources, and it really kind of goes on, and it gets you thinking. However, I am of the opinion that the super bright light is an artifact of the type of film that's being used. It can't necessarily differentiate shades of light and dark. It's either shit's light or shit's dark, right? That's it. That's all you got. So I don't know. But you have to admit, there was a lot more light in that time than we think about. We think of like the 1870s. We think of people, just like running around with candles. And they were. But things were a little bit more advanced, I think, than we were led to believe. Now we're getting into conspiracy theory. And this one is kind of cool. And I almost don't even know how to explain it because it's so... it's kind of woo-woo, if that makes sense. So this guy believes in morphic resonance. What is morphic resonance? Morphic resonance is the link between two, I think they have to be living, two things, and they're linked together. So let me give an example of morphic resonance. You go to work, you come home, and somehow your animals, your cat, your dog, your bird, flying squirrel, whatever, is there to greet you at the door when you walk in. And you're like, how did the dog know? I came home earlier than I usually do. And was the dog sitting here the whole time? So when you install cameras maybe. And then you see that the dog will actually go, or cat or whatever, and lay by the door right before you come home. It's almost as if they know intuitively or psychically when you're coming home. So why is that? This guy isn't necessarily, he's not necessarily making it new agey. He's trying to make it scientific, but it's hard because something like this sort of straddles the line, right? Right, like right now. Like once we start getting more into quantum stuff, quantum computers, quantum whatever, I think this kind of thing we might be able to study with some sort of educational rigorness. In like a way that can be proven, but we can't right now. But it gets lumped under like nonsense. Like this is not something that that really happens. But this guy was like, you know what, this guy should be taken more seriously. So he earned a doctorate in 1967. He's been around. He became a fellow and director of studies in biochemistry and cell biology. He became dissatisfied with the current theories of biology, and he wrote his first book in 1981, which is called A New Science of Life. And someone who wrote a review about it says, it's the best candidate for burning there has been for many years. So he's saying, burn the book. But anyway, he wrote more books. Dogs That Know When Their Owners Are Coming Home, The Sense of Being Stared At, 7 Experiments That Could Change the World, and most recently, Science Set Free in 2013. The reason I'm telling you about Sheldrake is that less than 2 months ago, we were both speakers at a festival on Hay-on-Wye, England, and were put in the same boarding house. So this guy spent lots of time talking to him. Sheldrake is terrific company. He is smart, articulate, and funny. He possesses a deep knowledge of science, including history and philosophy, which he studied at Harvard at the 1960s, so he continued his education. I do think science and philosophy make for sort of uneasy bedfellows, but I think you can combine them. And he talks about how science is limited, and there was something I wanted to read specifically. Morphic resonance is the influence of previous structures of activity on subsequent similar structures of activity organized by morphic fields. It enables memories to pass across both space and time from the past. The greater the similarity, the greater the influence of morphic resonance. What this means is that all self-organizing systems, such as molecules, crystals, cells, plants, animals, animal societies, have a collective memory on which each individual draws and to which it contributes. In its most general sense, this hypothesis implies that the so-called laws of nature are more like habits. And he talks about how there were rats that were tested in 2 different countries. There were rats that were tested in Scotland, and then there were some that were tested in Australia. So the ones in Scotland were tested first, and they did this maze. The ones in Australia seem to already understand and learn faster than the previous mice, and so on and so forth. So each set of mice in different places were able to solve it faster and faster, almost as if that knowledge that the first mice had passed on to the second group of mice. This has also been proven, sort of, and I can't find the article, but it's people taking tests. And that over time, like a group of people, each group would get better and better, contributing to this morphic resonance common pool of knowledge. So this guy says, is it telepathy? And he's saying, I'm not saying it's telepathy, it's morphic fields, and then it's your interpretation of the morphic field. But he says, I see telepathy as a normal, not paranormal, means of communication between members of animal groups. And he it makes for interesting reading. It's kind of mind-bending once you really start to think about it. But it's also like, have you ever thought of somebody and you're like, oh, that person, I haven't thought of them in years. And suddenly you bump into them. Or you hear from them. They get in touch with you and you're like, wow, I was just thinking about you. Or let's say your loved one is in a car accident. You might be at work and suddenly have a flash and know that there's something very wrong with your partner in that exact moment, and you race to the phone to try to find out what's going on. So I think there's something to this, and I don't think it's woo. I just think it's something we can't prove yet. Moving through conspiracy, we have the fascinating UFO landing pad in the Argentinian desert. So this dude got a lesson from, or got a message from aliens, telepathic message, saying, we need a landing place. You have to build us a landing place. So he moved to a cave in Argentina and built this crazy thing. So this is what he looks like, which is probably about what you would imagine he looks like. And here's a close-up picture of him. And here's his work. He made it, and then he disappeared. So did he make it and disappear because his job was done? Did he make it and disappear because his family was like, what's up? Like, what are you doing? Like, the part that I didn't really stress is that he was from Germany? Switzerland? I don't know. He's from far away. He's not from here. This is the cave he lived in. So very interesting, right? I mean, another interesting thing. So I've been watching this channel lately. This is Lucius Aurelian, and he has a lot of videos. He does a lot of activity. Really interesting stuff. He seems to be an academic, so his stuff is rooted in some sort of reality. So it's not just not just going straight to the woo, but really looking at things sort of objectively and saying, stuff doesn't add up, stuff doesn't make sense. And that's really what his whole channel is about, is that history does not make sense. There are gaps, there's time missing, there are entire groups of peoples that existed that are probably missing. All kinds of stuff is missing. And I mean, that's really just a consequence of time, right? Like, I'm 50 years old now, and I can't even tell you how much stuff has gone missing in my life that I've lost. Pictures, jewelry, weird, random stuff, right? Lost, gone. Anyway, he has a lot of good stuff. Here's some of his videos. And I recently watched Orphan Trains because I'm kind of a little bit convinced that my mom is the ancestor of someone who was on an orphan train. But it's just totally conjecture. I have no idea. All I do know is that my family tree, what I can trace of it, there's a big gap on both sides where there's no photos, there's no information, there's no nothing. There's no records. It's like they're just poof, not even there, and then they show up again. So anyway, I asked this guy permission to share his channel. He said, sure, here you go. Moving on. This is one of those random, completely random things that I found, and it's gems from the library of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences. And the thing that I like about these PDFs is that you can find art that you're not going to see in a museum because it's shuttled off to a private collector, or it goes into a museum that's not really open to the public. There's just so much out there, but it's got some medieval stuff in it. I really dig medieval art. This is actually probably late medieval, early Renaissance. It kind of depends on the location. Some locations advanced faster than others, so the Renaissance period would be considered a little bit earlier. It depends on where you stand in Europe and kind of who you talk to. When exactly did that change occur? I couldn't even begin to tell you. I just know that I find this book absolutely rad. It's so cool. I love the colors. So you see how there's this deep dark blue? Well, what they would do is, oh look, I happen to have a piece of lapis here. Is they take a piece of lapis, so this is rock, you can see it's very, very blue, right? And this is all natural. I think this particular piece was from a Middle Eastern guy. I don't remember. But you'd grind it up and mix it with some binding agents, maybe even egg, and that would make your paint, and then you would paint. And you can see many of these colors are still vivid, and they're so old. Like I have a picture of myself from when I was a kid, and it's faded, and it was never in the sunshine or anything. It was in an album. Faded. This thing, 400 years old, not faded. It's wild. And we start to get into the art and the prints. Prints, Prints, not Prince. But lots and lots and lots of fun stuff to look at and bug out about. Remember, I was talking about doorknobs. There's a fancy doorknob, I think. Is that a book? No. It's a letter seal. Not a doorknob. Gosh, my powers of observation are stunning. Here we have a hand. This is Istvan Skenecki's hand. I don't know who that is. And then we have the photos, right? We love the old photos. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to show you guys here. I think that might have been it. My next door neighbor's watching football, and he's very passionate about it. So look at this thing. This is cool. This is a library, apparently. Let's see. Let's look it up. Let's look. In Germany, it looks like, or Hungary. It's a library in Hungary. Like, did that really exist? Was there really a place where there were people on ladders grabbing all these books? Like, is that real? I'm not sure. This has sea monsters. He might be playing video games, but he's very passionate about stuff. You can hear that, right? Okay, so moving on. Interesting. In the links, you can look at it and poke through the beauties that it holds. So I'm bringing up a thing about Sumeria here, and the reason why I'm bringing up a thing about Sumeria is because it talks about Sumerians and kind of who they are and where they lived and blah, 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 blah. But the reason why I include this is because I found this. So this is the Epic of Gilgamesh, and it's in Sumerian. It's a 3,000-year-old language, maybe older, and it's not been spoken, no, actually 4,000 years. And this is the Epic of Gilgamesh. So the Epic of Gilgamesh is an epic poem from ancient Mesopotamia. It has 5 Sumerian poems about Gilgamesh, the king of Uruk, dating from the 3rd dynasty of Ur, 2100 BC. These independent stories were later used as material for a combined epic in Akkadian. The first surviving version of this combined epic, known as the Old Babylonian version, dates back to the 18th century BC and is titled after its incipit, Shutar el-Shari, surpassing all other kings. So this shows that, people were writing poems, epics. But the part about people writing poems and epics is that it means that people had enough time to write poems and epics. And for someone to have enough time to write poems and epics, they have to have shelter, steady flow of food, access to the materials that you would need to use to write, which were not available to every single person. Like, it wasn't like you just would go into a store and... So this is very fascinating. It shows a level of technology that we don't often think about. Costumes from Siberia, Central Asia, and the Far East. So we were talking about Mongolia earlier, and that got me inspired to go look up the different, types of clothing from that area. And I'm not going to bore you with all of it. I want to get to the Far East part. So here we're starting to move east, very East Russia. So, and a lot of these places were Russia then, and now they've become different places, like Kazakhstan or Samarkand, or no, Samarkand's a little lower. I forget. It's in here. Buryat. That's a place. Here's a very, looks very functional. This is actually summer clothing, so I'm guessing it's not super hot. But the one I wanted to show you is, oh, look at that coat. It's incredible, right? Wow. That's beautiful. So, clothes. I love clothes. I don't have a lot of belongings. Oh, look. I'm talking about lapis somewhere in ultramarine. Like, I don't have a super lot of belongings. Like, I don't really care about dishware. I don't collect ceramics. But I do have a lot of clothing. Right now I'm trying to get rid of stuff, and it's physically painful. You ladies out there know what I mean. Like, you'll see this sweater that you haven't worn in like 2 years, and you're like, oh, but it would be perfect for a picnic with that particular dress, and I could wear it, whatever. Like, it's ridiculous. I'm ridiculous when it comes to clothes. I think it comes from, look at how beautiful this is. I think it comes from just kind of like being very poor and not really having a lot of clothes and not feeling very attractive and feeling like the ugly kid and getting bullied and just, I was strange, and I was strange partly because I think I'm just strange, but a lot of it was the way that I grew up and the people that were around me who were completely insane. So here I am. Here I am. So that's why I think I love clothes so much, is because I don't know. I feel pretty. It's also like an armor that you put on, right? Like you're having a bad day, you get up for work, and you really got to kill it at work. Like you really got to do the thing. I'll look at my clothes as like a uniform. Like I'm back in the military. It's a form of camouflage. Like, okay, I'm putting on my power outfit. It's going to make me feel good. It's going to look good. And I'm going to stretch a little, and I'm going to make sure that I'm standing nice and tall, and that's also going to make me feel good. And I'm going to try to put a pleasant expression on my face, which is the hardest part of all three. Prostitutes were required by law to dye their hair blonde. Did you know that? I did not know that. But yes, it's true. I'm not making that up. We've come to the end. Before we finish, however, in addition to being obsessed with caves, rocks, yurts, I'm also obsessed with dancing. I love dancing. I choreograph stuff in my head all the time. I dance when nobody's looking. I love music. Music is fantastic, right? So I found this thing, and it's dancing in movie supercuts. So there's actually 2 of these, and they're just a lot of fun to watch, you know? Here's the other one. Oops. This is the remix. This is number 2. When I was a kid, I took dancing classes for a very brief period of time. My grandfather felt guilty about not being a part of his daughter's life, and so he gave us a bunch of money, and he gave a bunch of money for me to do stuff. That summer I took dance classes, I took swimming lessons, I took tennis lessons. I was able to go to summer camp. I got some new clothes. It was very cool. It was a cool summer. After that, he never talked to any of us again. But that was fun, the dancing. However, I discovered that I am, in spite of my love for dancing, a little bit clumsy and not really the best dancer. I'm just very enthusiastic about it. So let's look at Cleveland Museum of Art's. Let's look at a special collection of paintings while I take you out. We're going to listen to some music. And I'm going to make myself just a little bit bigger so you can see me. Here I am.
If you stumble on me, I'll dust myself and share with you a smile.
So this is Michael Steinman. He only has 6 subscribers. This is a great song. You should go listen to it and subscribe. Make him feel good. He'll be like, oh my God, I have like 15 subscribers now. He'll be like thrilled. I like this one a lot. It's very cool. I think that's supposed to be a dragon. I love this. This is fucking fantastic. Look at that. Did I say fucking? Sorry. Apologize 2 times. Oh, so hey, guess what, guys? I started I started knocking my camera over. I started painting again, so I'll have to show you my work when I start putting it together. Right now, I've just primed the canvas. This is wild. Look at that. That is so nice.
There is treasure beyond belief.
Orientalism. We've talked about this.
Leads toward your relief.
A monster.
Stumble while you give and take. Jump right in.
Abraham Lincoln and the King of Hearts. There's probably some meaning there. What's this? This is, can't tell what that is. It's probably the Gettysburg Address. Which I can still recite a lot of. That horse is mad, right? Is he sleeping or is he dead? I'm not sure. Arrgh. Behold my bird on my hand. This is fascinating. I have no idea what this one means. This is Persian, probably, from ancient Iran. This is JMW Turner, in case you didn't know, and this is the burning of London Bridge. And it's supposed to give you a feeling of sort of being far enough away to be safe, but still you can smell the smoke and you can see it, and there's fire all around you, and I have no idea what's going to play next, so this should be interesting because we're not quite done yet. We have this beautiful flower.
It is what it is, what it is, what it is. It is what
I'm going to get a copyright thingy. I need to get out of there. Okay, we're going to stop that because I don't want to get slammed for using music I'm not supposed to. This is some cool stuff. Oh my goodness. I'm not sure, but that looked a whole lot like a penis. Okay. Wow, look at that thing. Wow, that's cool. So these are select items from the Cleveland Museum of Art. It's online. I thought that it was interesting. It's what I selected to talk about. Let me fix my camera. So, Sunday, I'm going to eat some sausage and peppers. I'm going to play Talos Principle 2. There's a demo that's out that's fabulous. Just absolutely amazing. Very generous. It's free. I've been playing it for like 3 or 4 hours, and I'm only like 13% of the way through, so that's very exciting to me. I have a lot going on this week, a lot of meetings, events. Just it's going to be a really busy week. But I already have the next things I find interesting 44 lined up, and I plan on getting that out real soon. So everybody, I'd like to wish you a very good week, and hold your head high. You've gone through a lot to be here, and I'm proud of you.